Dallas Cowboys, baby. Forever.
The 1995 Cowboys. Let's discuss them for just a little bit. That particular team is very interesting. What happened in '95? So let's go back. Let's go back a little bit and let's move up to '95. This is for the younger people who may not have lived through those years like you and I did.
You kids listening to this, you kids listen to D-Dub. He gonna tell you some stuff. So y'all think the Cowboys have never been a winning team. Y'all just don't understand.
We're gonna go before the 25 years that we ain't seen a Super Bowl. We're gonna go before that time. You know, they did play football before 1995. I swear some people don't believe that when it comes to the Cowboys. Football started in 95 and the Cowboys ain't never won nothing.
Ever. Not a game.
Not a game. So 1980s, Danny White, 3 NFC championship games. We just couldn't get over the hump, but almost. And I think Danny White is not appreciated, especially by me. I was not a Danny White fan back in the 80s, partially because I'm coming off Staubach and all these Super Bowls and Super Bowl appearances.
You got something against punters anyway, D-Dub, admit it. You don't.
Something against what?
You got something against punters, man. You don't like punters, admit it.
Quarterback punters, yeah, I'm gonna have an issue with that. It was quarterback and punt. That's crazy. I don't think that's ever happened. Has it? I don't think it ever has. 89 hits. Tom Landry retires. Well, 88, I think they had a pretty bad year. I don't have the record up for me, but pretty bad year.
Don't sugarcoat it, D-Dub. Tom Landry he didn't retire. They told us.
Well, yeah.
Come on, don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah. Okay. He for the most part got fired, but they're going to call it. They're going to mask it as a retirement. Jerry Jones comes in, buys a team.
For you young people out there, Tom Landry is a man who is considered one of the greatest football coaches in the world. I know y'all are too young to realize that.
Question.
But
no question.
Thomas Landry, who was under the tutelage of some of the greatest names in football, like Vince Lombardi and all this good stuff. He used to be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and he was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 29 years. That's just a little tidbit of information for you young people out there. Keep going.
And 20 straight, by the way, 20 straight playoff appearances. I don't think that's been been touched yet.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yeah, 20 straight appearances. 20 straight playoff appearances. So 89 kicks off. Jerry Jones buys the team. We go 1-15. Jimmy Johnson, Troy Aikman in 19. Yeah, he drafted in 1989. 89 for Aikman, 88 for Irvin.
Number 88.
Yep.
88 for number 88.
And 90 was Emmitt Smith. For 2 years after 89, by the way, 1-15 in 89, worst year we ever had. First year of Jimmy Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Next 2 years, we flounder anywhere between about 9 wins, and I think we make a playoff in 91, but don't do anything if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. 92, we won a Super Bowl. First Super Bowl since 77, I believe. 77. We won the last Super Bowl.
Yes, sir.
Then of course 93 we win our second in a row. And then something crazy happens. Completely out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
There is a shakeup in the front office. Jimmy Johnson, or so I say Jerry Jones, actually says something in a bar where there are multiple press folks. Basically says that any of 500 coaches could do what Jimmy Johnson has done. Basically saying he's the reason why they won those Super Bowls. Jimmy Johnson, on the other hand, says that Jacksonville Jaguars job, they just coming in the league, sure look enticing. Sure would be something I'd be interested in pursuing if things don't pan out. This is after winning 2 Super Bowls.
2 in a row.
2 in a row. Two Super Bowls in a row. In 4 years. Yeah,
from
4 years.
From 1-15 from 1-15 to back-to-back Super Bowls and being the most feared team in the NFL. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of that going on, the two decide to part ways after the 95 or 93 Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
We want to know as a fan base, what's going on? Where we go from here? What's happening? We find out that the former head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners, who had won 3 national championships there and had been out of the league, or actually been out of coaching for a bit. I'm not sure exactly how long, but he'd been out of coaching for a bit. But Jerry Jones reaches out to Barry Switzer. Has some history with Barry Switzer. I believe he was a coach, if I'm not mistaken. He actually coached Jimmy and Jerry at some point, if I'm not mistaken, at some point. Because I know, Jerry played football at Arkansas. I don't know how good he actually was, but I want to say they were teammates or something, and I think Barry had something to do with it. But anyway, he reaches out to Barry. We can probably look at that a little bit later, but he reaches out to Barry. Barry says yes, comes in. 1994. We go to the NFC Championship game, first year for Barry Switzer. And I can remember this game vividly.
Yes, sir.
Against the San Francisco 49ers.
Yes, sir.
We drop down, or we fall behind 21-0. I think it was two interceptions by Aikman, and something else happened. Maybe a fumble or whatever. 21-0 in the first quarter. And somehow we fight our way back, but still come short.
Yep.
Lose to the 49ers. 49ers win their 5th Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. And then we get to 1995, where we climb the hill again. We climb the mountain with Barry Switzer, and we win our 3rd Super Bowl. This is after we get Dion with the whole Dion deal. I mean, it was pretty big money back then, but we steal him from the 49ers, who had him, that beat us in 1994.
Yep.
So 1995 comes around, we win a Super Bowl. Question. Who gets the most credit for that win in 1995? Is it Jimmy Johnson for quote unquote building that team? Do we say Jerry Jones for allowing and to a certain extent participating in building that team? Do we give it to the players because they were just all of that at the time? Or do we give it to Barry Switzer, who came in behind Jerry Jones or Jimmy Johnson to win that 95 championship? What say you?
Okay. In order. Players, Jimmy, Jerry, Barry. And if I could, I would drop Barry completely off of this. If I could, but I can't. But if I could, I'd drop Barry completely off the list. In that order, the players, Jimmy, Jerry, and Barry. That's that order. And I can go into a significant amount of detail. I have been talking about this since back then. If you ask me, is Barry Switzer a good head coach? My response is Barry Switzer is a Hall of Fame collegiate coach. On the professional level, I could probably put 500 coaches above him. 500 coaches above him. Barry Switzer did absolutely nothing. And you've heard me give the analogy years and years ago. I used to say, Barry Switzer inherited a brand new Ferrari, and all he had to do was put gas in it. I have now matured since then. So my analogy has been tweaked and refined since then. Because if you give someone a brand new Ferrari, they still have to drive it, and they still have to drive it well. Okay. I ain't giving Barry no credit. Barry didn't have to drive nothing. Matter of fact, they gave him a brand new Ferrari, and they put it in the right in the what you call it, the tunnel. And they said, Barry, not only is it a brand new Ferrari, not only is it full of gas, we only need you to drive it from the tunnel out on the field to the star, wave, get the hell out of it, and walk over to the sideline, take your place over there. We're not going to even let you drive it off the field. We'll have somebody else drive it off the field. We just need you to roll it out 5 miles an hour onto, and Barry, don't do nothing stupid like doing no donuts in the middle of the field and all this, ripping up the turf and all that stuff. You hear us, Barry? All we need you to do is get in this pretty brand new Ferrari. Matter of fact, somebody had already started it up for you. Ain't even got to start it up. Sit there and roll that bad boy 5 miles an hour out to the middle of the star. Wave to the fans. They're going to be screaming so loud, the decibel level's going to be going off the roof and everything. And we need you to get out, close the door, and just walk over to the sideline and try not to trip while you're walking over to the sideline. Put on the headphones and be the head coach. That's all we need you to do, Barry, because before you got here, Jimmy Johnson, you can see I'm going up the ladder here. Jimmy Johnson bought the team. He was a brilliant, ingenious person to see that the Dallas Cowboys was going to be something special, and he was going to put his business mojo behind it and make it something special. Probably one of the greatest investments anybody has ever made. If I remember correctly, I think Jerry Jones bought the team for, I want to say 260,000, 300,000, something like that. It was something, I mean, just piddly. Mm-hmm. And it is currently the most valued sports franchise in the world, even over the New York Yankees. So it's amazing what he's done. So that's where that next level so he did buy that team. He did hire the people to help him put the team together that made it an absolute star. That's where you go up next rung on that ladder, Jimmy Johnson. And Jimmy Johnson not only pushed for the players he needed, he coached the team in a way that forced a winning attitude, forced it 100%. Okay. Jimmy Johnson would be at the very top of the list if it not for the fact that in 95, he was indeed not on the sideline. And if you recall, there was an interview of Michael Irvin when they lost the NFC Championship game the year before. He said at the end of that game, the following year, they would win the Super Bowl. This was Michael Irvin who said that. At the loss of the previous NFC Championship game, he said, we're winning the Super Bowl last year. He was pissed off, and he knew that he was going to get together with all of the fellas and say, fellas, I'd be damned if this happens next year. And you got to give the credit to the players, because the players said, even without Jimmy, we're getting ready to do this. I'm going to pause right there, let you get a word in inchwise. I would drop Barry off the list if I could.
Oh, boy. I think we've been discussing this for years now, and I thought it was a good idea for us to finally hash it out and come to an agreement. Well, we're not going to come to an agreement. We're not going to come to an agreement on this. It's just that simple. So you said players, you have players at the top.
Yeah, players at the top. I would put Jimmy at the top. But Jimmy was not on the sideline. I got to say that he wasn't on the sideline. And the players actually had to go out there and get it done. So I got to put the players at the top. And for Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Charles Haley, Darren Woodson, for all these guys said, you know what? Ain't no way in the world we should have lost that NFC Championship game. And ain't no way in the world we're going to lose next year, guaranteeing a Super Bowl.
But if I recall, and I could be wrong on this, it just could be my history's off. If I recall, Michael Irvin had said that he's going to do this. We're going to win this Super Bowl, and we're going to do it for Barry.
Ooh, I would have to look that up. I'm not 100% sure because I got a couple.
Yeah, he knew of all the criticism that Barry was getting of coming after a Super Bowl winning coach. So he knew. Now, my question is, what is a coach's job? And I'm going to get to my like you did the top four.
Yeah.
One part of a coach's job is to motivate, is to inspire, right?
Yeah.
It's to have his players want to run through a brick wall for him. There have been few NFL coaches that you can say was more of a player's coach than Barry Switzer. He was that kind of dude that had players who wanted to run through a wall for him, who could motivate, who could inspire.
In college,
as well as in this small amount of time, we saw where the most spirited guy on the team, who undoubtedly was a leader on that team, Michael Irvin, is basically saying, we're going to do this thing for Barry Switzer. Did Barry come in and have to put his stamp on his team? No, he didn't. I think he understood that he had a Ferrari, as you said. He didn't have a Pinto.
No, he didn't.
He'd have to build up a Pinto and put rims on it and put a turbo engine in it and anything. He had a winning team. However, that winning team failed in 1994. So what gets a team that fails in 1994 back to winning in 1995? I'm not going to say it's all coaching.
Two names: Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin. And when you get done, I want to play. I got two clips I want to play for you, but you just pointed me in which one I want to play for you first.
All right.
And it's about a 4-minute clip. But keep going. The motivating factors were Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, not Barry Switzer.
So we're saying that at least in the 1994 season in Dallas, right? I don't know about everywhere else, but in this small point in time, coaching or coaches really didn't matter in 1994, 1995 with this organization. Because we've seen talented teams in all sports, right? NBA, absolutely. NFL,
absolutely.
Major League Baseball. We've seen talented teams not win.
Absolutely.
So just because we had talent, that talent didn't stop Troy Aikman from throwing two interceptions in the 94 NFC Championship game.
Correct.
So coaching had to still matter to get us back from losing an NFC Championship game into winning into winning a Super Bowl in '95. So let me give the way I said them. I'm going to say at number 4, I'm going to say Jimmy Johnson. And that has nothing to do with me bashing Jimmy Johnson. I love Jimmy Johnson. I wish he never would have left. We would have won 4 or 5 straight if he didn't leave.
Yes.
Right. But he did leave. There was an ego there between him and Jerry. So he left. So I don't think even his way of coaching wasn't even still instilled in the team. You know, that the fear that he brought wasn't there in '95 because he wasn't there. He was the reason for the fear that players had of the coaching staff. So he wasn't there. So that fear wasn't there. There was something different when it came to Barry. So I have Jimmy at number 4. Number 3, I'm gonna say the players. I'm saying the players because, again, as I said, they had a lack, and it was a small. I mean, again, the expectation was so high in those years. Even going to an NFC Championship game was a failure as far as the fans were concerned. But they took a step back in '94. Something had to happen for them to get back to '94 to Super Bowl '95. So I'm gonna say the players at number 3. I'm gonna say number 2 is Barry Switzer. Again, he had to build a team, if not put in an offensive scheme, change the defensive scheme. He had to be the motivating factor. He had to inspire the players. Did he look goofy on the sideline? Sometimes, sure. You know, carried a gun in DFW airport, sure. Kind of goofy, but you can't tell me if you talk to anybody that played him in Oklahoma, if you talk to anybody that played with him,
that's in
and
college,
the Cowboys. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to Cowboys now. Anybody at Oklahoma, anybody that played with him in the Cowboys, that they did not love this dude. And that matters when it comes to coaching. It does. Not every coach. See, I don't even know where he stands with the X's and O's thing. I just know that if he is your coach, you love the dude, and it's enough that you go out there and play hard for the dude. That says a lot.
In college,
in Dallas as well.
I got 2 clips I want to play for, and like I said,
and number one, of course, I'm going to give it to Jerry Jones. He was the common denominator, because if we're gonna bash him now, and boy, do I bash him now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He was still, and people don't realize it, he was still the general manager during the Jimmy Johnson days, for the Jimmy Johnson years. He was still the GM.
Yeah, he was still the GM, but even he will tell you
less control.
Yeah, he had less control, and no one, including the Big Tuna, no one pushed back on Jerry more than Jimmy did.
Right.
Jimmy saw Jerry as his equal in every aspect except for ownership. Jimmy saw Jerry as, look, dude, I coach, you own, and you get to make some decisions as the owner, but I'm telling you, this is who you're going to get, and this is why you're going to get them. And if you go back and look at the interviews and everything, the whole Herschel Walker trade was Jimmy Johnson's baby, not Jerry Jones's baby. And the Herschel Walker trade is what allowed us to get 8 good players for 1 player. And it all started from there, because Jimmy said, look, right now, Jerry, one of your problems is mindset and talent. And that's why we went 1-15. He said, let me get the people in here who's going to deal with the furnace that I'm going to put into them, that I'm going to build around them. I'm going to build a red hot furnace around them, and there's only a certain type of individual player who can deal with that.
Yeah.
Who can deal with that. And if they deal with it, I guarantee you I can create you a winning team. Guaranteed.
The other thing that I didn't mention is, and everybody probably in the NFL that's been in the NFL will say this, every year is different.
Yeah.
There is no carryover.
Yeah.
And that's a big point as to what we're saying. So this idea that that maybe Jimmy still had his stamp on this team in 94, 95, I think that's over exaggerated a bit, because again, Barry Switzer had a completely different way of dealing with his players. You know, if you fell asleep in a meeting, there wasn't this fear that you were going to get cut tomorrow.
Right.
That's the way Jimmy Johnson rolled. So that was a completely different regime that was under Barry. I mean, Barry was a completely different regime than what was under that Jimmy Johnson had. So the idea that there was carryover from 92, 93 over to 95, I think is a bit exaggerated. I'm not saying that it's completely exaggerated, because you still had the three principals in Smith, Aikman, and Irvin. Right. The other thing is there was a lot of turnover from those 92, 93 teams to the 95 team, including Deion Sanders.
Right.
So that is part of the reason why I'll have Jimmy, no disrespect, have Jimmy at number 4 of those 4 players.